an exposure level for one area and another, and then get there. When we did the Mercedes, I was able to pretty much light everything I wanted exactly as I wanted. And whilst this has gone easy, I've just not been able to do that exactly as I want, because that ridge is at the same angle as that ridge. That means if I want light there, it's going to be there as well, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Ted is asking as well, could the extra light on the bonnet be flagged?
No, because you've got to think of physics, right? Where's the light coming from? It's coming from here. And what are we seeing? We're seeing a reflection of that. If I put a flag here, all we're going to see is a reflection of the flag in that mirror. This is a mirror, essentially. We'll just see the flag in this. So we can't do it. You can't do that in such a way. We're not lighting directly onto the car. It's an image reflecting that you're seeing is what it is. And if we put something there, we'll see that as well.
Then we have a question. In the C pillar of the car, we can see the panel ending, like a curvy white line. Would you do anything for that in post-production?
No, we're going to polarize that to show you how that works, and we're also going to do something in post-production. Come into that later.
Last one from Christopher. Every time you add a light, it changes things. So how do you decide what to do in camera or in post, or what to do in post?
Just evaluate it, and I look at it and I say, does that look good? I suppose the more experience you have in photography and the more you do photography, you just know what looks good. And what I think looks good, someone else might not think looks good, but for me, after 30 years, most of what I do, people think looks good. So I look at a light and I think, do I like the shape of that light? Does it create the contours? Does it show the best part of the product? Is it too contouring? Is it not contouring enough, etc., etc.? Is it too gradient? Is it too soft? Is it too harsh? And I'll just tweak it, and I'll tweak lights. I may start with something like I did at the back of the car, and then I may change it partway through because the way the bonnet looks might change my interpretation of that. But I just visually keep assessing and reassessing. And as I always say with product photography, go and take a tea break and come back with fresh eyes 10, 15 minutes later, because when you see it fresh, you go, oh, actually, that bit's a bit bright. And then you say, right, I'm going to take half a stop off that light. Simple as that.
Two more have come in. Could we use a mirror on the floor to light the front of the car?
Not really. I don't think it would have a great deal of effect here, because there's no real direct light there. It's just the general glow that was coming off from here, coming down to here. I already know that doing this is going to give me a much better gradient in there. You could have a mirror there. If it picked up the gradient from there, you might get away with it, but it seems like it would be a little bit uncontrolled.
And then we have a question saying, what should be the strategy to light up the glass, the windshield door, glass, etc.? How much reflectivity and see-through of glass should be maintained? Or are you going to touch on this later, perhaps?
I'll touch on it, and I touch on it in the Mercedes tutorials. But again, that's one of those open-ended questions, like how long is a piece of string? How much glow is on the glass is down to whether you think it looks cool or not. Let me show you a couple of other pictures just quickly. Let me just get my glasses out here. If I just jump over to my website very, very briefly, so you can see the shots that we took on the Mercedes that are going to be the tutorials. Some would say, well, you know, there's a lot of glow on that glass. There is, but that's because I liked how it looked. I wanted that look and feeling of that sort of flary light coming from behind. So that whole back window has a bit of glow. This window has a bit of glow, but I didn't mind it. I liked it. And, you know, there's no glow on that windscreen because I've got a light behind the car shining through. So I didn't want any glow on that windscreen. So to ask me how much, that one's got a little bit of glow on the windscreen, but not much on the side. To ask me how much glow is needed on a windscreen is like, you know, it's just too loose an open-ended question. You just light whatever you think looks good. This is the problem with many photographers, and you lot included. You want formulas, you want recipes, you want colour by numbers. Forget it. Forget that. Light what you see and see what you want and go for it. That's it. Right, let's get on with it. Okay, this light is coming in here and it's shining on the floor. Can you see that patch of light on the floor there? I don't know if it's showing up. It's very weak because this has got a weaker modelling lamp. This is just a little Fresnel light. You could do this with a, what do you call it? A honeycomb grid to create a little ball of light. But Fresnels give a slightly better gradient. They just feather off, more precisely. Now I'm hoping that that light bouncing on the floor is going to emulate what I already saw naturally in the previous shot. We're going to find out. What power is it on, please, Georgie? 7.5. Okay, we'll start with it on 7.5. Let's jump back to the shot there. There's the shot before where we were. That's as far as we got. Notice this bit down here. Now this goes back to this whole formulaic thing, right? I had no idea whatsoever when I started this shoot that I wanted to light that part. I just saw it and I thought, oh, that looks nice. That we could make that look a lot better. I didn't plan it. I just build the shot up bit by bit by bit. You know, you just sort of start doing it and things change, things evolve. You can't say, right, I'm going to put light A there, light B there, that's going to be 7.2, that's not how you do photography. Photography is art as well, you know, it's like painting. You've got to just make it look nice based on what you see. Right, I'm going to have a right rant in a minute if we don't get on with this. Right, here we go. Right, so we've put that patch of light on the floor. I put that patch of light on the floor because I saw something that I liked. And here is the result of expanding on that, and that's what gave me that. And I'm very, very happy with that, except it makes a nasty patch of light on the floor, as I think Christopher pointed out earlier, that is going to be needed to be dealt with in post. But I'm not worried about that because we have a wonderful opportunity in next week's live show to deal with that. So that gives me some lovely contouring in that grille area, and that isn't with lighting the car directly, that's lighting the floor. And in lighting the floor, I'm able to bounce light off the floor. It may be a little bit bright. I think we could probably shave, let's take half a stop off of it to start with. And we'll take a look at it with half a stop off. We're going to then shoot it. There's half a stop off. That's a little bit better. I'll evaluate whether it's the right amount of light later. That decision doesn't need to be made just now. Remember we mentioned about the wheel? The wheel needs to have some light on it. This wheel was a little bit dark compared to the other wheel. We could do it in post-production because there is light there, but I decided to light it with a light. If you can plug that into the extension cable, please. We have another P70, and this time I have an even tighter grid. The tightest grid they do, the big thick one, to keep a really nice small size ball of light. So at the moment we haven't used any real, different modifiers, because generally when you light into walls and big ceiling panels, you just want a gradient and you don't want light spreading out too far. So a P70 or standard reflector or whatever you call it is usually the right thing for the job. Now, I'm going to take this in from over here somewhere and get that plugged in. Yeah, let's go into there. And I'll put the modelling light on. Now, there you go. Now, this is obviously a very harsh light, but look how controlled it is. It makes a nice small patch of light. This is why I said you could have used a grid instead of that light I've got on the floor, because it's very similar in what it does. Actually, the feather with this grid is really quite nice. But I'm going to use it here on the wheel just to punch a little bit of extra light into the wheel, but without hitting the bodywork of the car. Now, look, you can light body panels of a car like this. You will get a specular highlight somewhere that you'll need to remove and retouch. But there are instances where you do mix up a bit of lighting. So you have your main gradient lighting, and then you have the odd spotlight hitting a particular thing. You will see that in our Mercedes tutorials. You won't see it today, but it can be used as a technique. Now, I'm just trying to make sure that I don't light any of the car other than the wheel. And I think I've got the wheel lit there. I've got no idea what power it needs to be. What power is it, please, Georgie? 4. We'll try 4. We'll take a test shot. Let's look at what we've got on screen now. And let's take a shot and let's see what happens to that wheel. There you go. Nice little blip of light in the wheel. I'm now going to put my glasses on and I'm going to say, is that light too bright in the wheel? I think it is. I think it's slightly too bright. Has it affected any other part of the car? I'm going to flick to the shot before. It's added a tiny little bit of light on the edge of the wheel arch. Tiny little bit of light in that bit there that I don't like. And it's added a nasty reflection in there. Nothing I'll be able to do about that based on the physics. I think, though, I might be able to restrict some of that light hitting that lower grille. So I'm going to get Georgie to move the light for me, but she's going to have to, for me to see what's going on, we're going to have the other modelling light off. If you could just go and flick the modelling light off on that switch there, and I'm going to have to just turn that light away for a moment. Now, I need an assistant to do this because I need to look through camera, because one of the nasty things I've got going on here is I've got this light catching a bit in here that I don't like. So Georgie's going to move this light. That one's fine, yeah, because it's too dim. Georgie's going to move this light maybe in and left a bit or whatever. I don't know, but she's going to just wait till I'm looking through camera. And while I'm looking through camera, I'll be able to see what's happening. If you don't have enough kit, or if you don't have an assistant, you could do this in live view, but I think you're going to really struggle. Move in closer to the wheel, please. Turn the light to the left a bit. Okay, right, move the whole light to the left and then keep it pointing at the wheel. So go left, keep pointing at the wheel. That's it, there you go. Now that's made it disappear. So just that small adjustment in angle, instead of being there and now being there, that light in there has gone. Okay, so nice and simple. Just look at it, see what happens and deal with it. Now we also know that light was too strong before. Right, I want you to turn that light to the right slightly more, Georgie. All right, now pull it back from the car a bit. Bit more. Right, now turn it back to the left a tiny bit. Okay, right, now it was too bright. We have still got a tiny little bit of catch light on that edge, but it's in a better position than it was, and it actually looks quite nice. I'm going to take another test shot now. We're going to look at the difference on the wheel. So the wheel's fine, right? The difference is down here that I was worried about. See that bit down there? Before, in the previous shot, it was like that. I had that stripe of light in there, and I didn't like that. Now that's gone, so I'm happy. But how does the wheel look? Well, the wheel looks a bit too bright to me. I've got to say I can't see anything at the moment because I've got this massively powerful video light shining in my face there. So I'm just going to turn that over there out the way. I'm going to look at that wheel, make a decision on the exposure. Yeah, okay, so I'm looking at that wheel and I'm saying, yeah, that wheel's too bright. Go and knock off half a stop off of that wheel light for me, please, Georgie. So we'll take the shot again. We look at the wheel light, half a stop has come off. There it goes, half a stop darker. I think another half a stop can come off. So we're taking, that's a stop that's come off it now. So there it is. Now if we jump back to when we had no light on the wheel, it was that. So it certainly helped with the light on the wheel, but clearly it was way too bright when we began it, and now it's down. And I made all of those decisions just by looking at that wheel there and thinking, does that look about the same brightness as the one at the back? We don't need a light meter to tell us that. We just look at it and say, now it's right. Simple as that. Now, we have a few anomalies. Let's look at the anomalies. We can see that is our light with the grid on. That is the lighting stand. That is the cable from the light. And all of this nonsense in here, let's look at this. All of this nonsense in there, all of those reflections, all of that is stuff. That stuff over there. So we've got a bunch of patchy gibberish going on in here. One of it is that we can't do anything about. We can probably do something with this cable to minimize the cable in there in a minute. But we've also got some other gibberish I just showed you, and I can pretty much tell you looking at it, because I could see that thing there. I could see that satellite light reflecting and all this. So what we're going to do is we're going to block that with a dark panel. We've got a mobile wall. You could use the mobile wall. I got my mobile wall with a white panel side. Actually, let's just show you what happens here. We're gonna just move this out the way a bit, and we're gonna. I'll tell you what. We'll mark that because we're gonna have to move that, and I want to get that back in the same position. Where's our tape? Right. Let's mark that light. So if you've got to move a light, just mark it. We're gonna mark that because we want it back there. We know it worked there. We're gonna get this out the way because we've got to get a wall in. To it. Now I'm going to show you something here. First of all, we're going to put the white side in as a reflector panel. So in you go, down that end. So we're going to bring the white side in, and then this is going to work basically like a reflector, just to show you how a reflector can fill more light in this area. I don't want more light in that area, but I'm just going to show you anyway. Let's turn all the modelling lights back on so the video guys and producers and everyone else can see what they're doing a bit better. Right, now let's show you this white panel reflector. Basically, it's a white wall. That is 2.5 meters from the car. Let's look how much difference it makes on the tyre. The wheel light is gone, so don't worry about that. But what you're looking at here, look at the car now. This dark area of the car here, you might say, oh, I don't want that dark. Fine, don't need to light it. Just bring a reflector in, and all of a sudden, look at that. It's got heaps more light in it. But I knew we were going to have to bring that reflector in, not to add more light in, but I wanted it to get rid of all the gibberish that was in there, because remember in the previous shot, look, we've got all this gibberish reflections of objects in our studio. Now I don't want that I don't want that car filled in with more light there, because I like that dark look, the way it goes from light to dark to light. So I'm going to use the dark side. The dark side. We're going over to the dark side. We're going to use the dark side of the panel instead, which won't add light in there, but it will get rid of all those gibberish reflections that we had, hopefully, and hopefully that doesn't add a new one, but we'll see. So I'm just going to take a test shot with it now. Now we'll see that panel get much darker again. There we go. And if we zoom in, look at that. No gibberish reflections, all that stuff there that we had, mostly gone in that. Obviously we've got to put the light for the wheel back in, and there's nothing we can do about that. So always think as well, don't just think white reflective panels, think dark grey or black reflective panels to sometimes just stop bits of your studio reflecting where you don't want it, etc, etc. Right, while Georgie carefully gets that light back in, take cable around the back, because we had a problem with the cable. So go around the back and come around that side, see if that helps us. Well, take some questions.
Okay, we've got a question from
I'm just
Christopher.
Drink my coffee while I do it.
Saying, could you use dulling spray to soften some of the mirror surfaces on the car?
No, not really. First of all, dulling spray is very greasy. It would make a big mess of the car. Whoever owned the car, I mean, obviously if it was you doing it for the manufacturer, they'd let you do it. But I don't think it would help, to be honest. I think it just wouldn't look right. And
then Jaspreet is asking, do you think the Elinchrom studio lights are good because the CRI is 92% of Elinchrom high sync lights? So is it good to shoot with that to get good color representation in a shot?
Is he talking about Elinchrom LED lights? Why would there be a color index reference?
He didn't specify.
Because if they're Elinchrom flash lights, they'll be the same as every other flashlight because they all use the same technology flash tube. So they'll all be full spectrum, 5,600 to 5,900 Kelvin, no problem at all. So you won't have any issue with color index or full color spectrum with studio flash lighting. With LED lighting, you can have a problem because LED lighting can be missing parts of the spectrum unless it's very good quality LED lighting. So I'd say anything above 95 is very high quality LED lighting. The new Bron LED lights are 98, I think. So, you know, they're pretty much almost identical to studio flash lighting. So I don't know, what index did you say it was? What CRI?
92%.
It's all right. I mean, it's not. Personally, I prefer 95 and over. I didn't even know Elinchrom did LED lighting, but if you wanted to use Elinchrom Studio flash lighting to do this, you could, of course, do it. You know, you don't need any high-speed flash duration for this stuff. You can do this with continuous LED lighting if it's high quality. You can do it with HMIs. You can even do this with the modeling lamps. It would be a bit of a mission, but you could do it with the modeling lamps. Modeling lamps are a lot warmer at 3,200 Kelvin, but they're still full spectrum. So you just adjust your color temperature and you'd need a longer exposure time, but you won't have that control over the power that we have with flash, where we can, you know, make those micro 1/10 of an f-stop adjustments in power. All right, good to go. Right, the wheel light is back in. And we know that that wheel light is going to cause us a little bit of a problem, but our cameraman has caused us a bit of a problem. So we're just going to go back to that shot again, do the shot. So the wheel light is back in. Now, here's the anomalies that we've got on the car that we need to deal with. One is that light there, that we're going to deal with that in post-production next week. That specular highlight is from this light up here, and that specular highlight is from the light over in front of the car. Nothing I can do about that. You could flag those potentially. That's actually a very good point. Get some black bits of black foam board if we've got any of that size. This is interesting. You could, the specular highlight that is happening here is a direct reflection of that. But that isn't needed. All that's needed is that. So theoretically, you should be able to flag that without any adverse effect on the car, or without any adverse effect on that, unless it creates a shadow. If it doesn't, we may even be able to remove those specular highlights by flagging. So we're going to just test it and see. I'm not even bothered if it does or doesn't work, because I know we can do it in post. Georgie's going to go in here and she's going to hold that just as a little test to see if we can get rid of that. Oh, actually, there is some light spilling onto there, which is interesting from that light. So let's see what it does. Tim, you just have to obviously jump out of the shot there. Now, I'm going to look through camera while Georgie brings it up. Up you go, Georgie. There, right. Now, if we look at that little specular highlight that was on the car, now it's gone. So it was there, and in the previous shot it was there. So yeah, there is a little bit of lighting. Let me zoom in on that area. Let's move over there, zoom in another click. So there was that specular highlight that was from our light there, and there we got rid of it. So actually, getting rid of it is quite good. There was only a tiny spill of light. Now, could we flag this one? This one is the one that's shining on the floor, I believe. So what would happen if we flagged this one? This one would be more of a mission, because I think this one could end up reflecting the car. But just come in here and hold that a second, and let me see while I look through camera if that one removes lower. Yeah, we can't flag that one without a massive issue. And this goes back, keep it there actually, Georgie. This goes back to what I was saying when the question came up before about flagging. Watch what happens here. Look at the reflection in the bonnet of the car from the flag. There, see? So now, flagging anything that is a mirror reflection, there's the flag. So we can't do it there. So that one's a no-no. Could you figure out a way of getting a flag to work there, or should we let's just hold it in for one shot at the end when we come to do the shot. Right, we have another little area of lighting that I want to deal with. I'm looking at that again with fresh eyes, and I'm saying, you know what, the bonnet still looks a bit bright relative to the back. So Georgie, can I ask you to add half a stop to the light that's on the side of the car? That's the light down the back, please. We're going to put half a stop extra on this light here, because when I looked at that with fresh eyes, this looked considerably brighter than this. So I'm going to gradually make this a bit brighter until it looks right in balance with the front lighting. So take the test shot. It's got half a stop extra on it. Yep, now it's interesting because that bounces a bit of light elsewhere around the studio that actually brightened up other areas. It was mostly on the side, which is fine, but it has added a bit more light on the front of the car as well. Not a lot I can do about that based on the bounce, but I do like the level of glow. Let me just check actually I've got my contrast up a little bit high on there on the settings. Exposure was up a tiny bit. So I think overall, that's actually reasonably well balanced considering there is no post-production there at all at the moment. So, what about color balance, right? We were just speaking about color balance. Here's a good opportunity to put a gray card in, but I don't need to put a gray card in because I know I've got pure white to measure off here. So I could just neutralize off any part of the white paint or off of the silver on the car, and it's going to give me the color balance that I want. Let's just do it. Let's neutralize off the side of the car. There you go. That's probably what the car or the color should be. If I neutralize off the white ceiling panel, there's a few variabilities in color temperature there, but nothing too much to worry about. So I can adjust my color temperature later, so no issues there. Right, my final feelings on the car are that, this front part of the car here is just a little bit dark. So I'm going to pop a reflector panel in to add a little bit of illumination into the front grille and the number plate area just to lift it up. But I mean, that's really at quite a nice position. Then we'll finish off, I think, just with the polarizer and showing you a little bit about how polarizers can be useful. Right, let's get a poly board. We had a big poly board somewhere. I think we can put it in front here, in front of this to, oops, we'll move that till later. The big poly board we had is over by the garage door actually. And we put it up against the garage door. We're going to just put a C-stand in here just to rest a large white reflector panel against, I hope. So I just want to get a bit more light in there. Now, like we did with the white wall before, we're just putting this white panel in to, that one's actually a bit high, so we'll probably have to angle it down. Right, just angle that, tilt that one down. That's it, there you go, that can just rest there, lock it again, and that's fine. We don't even need any clamps because sometimes the clamps can end up reflecting. As long as it stays there for the minute. Let's just see what it does. So we will look at the shot that we've got on screen now. We take another shot with that poly board in. We're looking at the front of the car. Boom. Lovely little bit of light into the number plate and the front grille just lifted up a little bit. And now you see when I look at that overall, I'm looking at the balance of the lighting over the car and I'm saying, you know what, that actually looks really nice. I've got a major problem with this line of light on the windscreen here. This looks a little bit odd, but there's not a lot I can do about that unless I polarize it or I can fix it in post. I'm looking at that light on that grille again. So this Fresnel Pico light, please. Can you take the power of that and go up half a stop again? Remember, we took it down before, but now I want to see what it looks like a bit brighter again. So I'm just looking at it relative to everything else that I'm seeing going on. And I like it just a little bit brighter, so I'm going to stick with it a bit brighter. We know we can flag that light there in a minute to stop it reflecting. I think we're pretty much there, to be honest. We've actually taken that in an hour and a half very close to where I need it to go, and it has very little, need for post-production. There is one anomaly that you may have noticed, and that is in the bonnet there. There's just that little patch of darkness, and I can tell you what that is. It's not bothering me tremendously because I know it can be tweaked and fixed afterwards. But let me explain what it is to you. Let me just get my connection back. I'm just going to check that. Yeah, that's all fine. So we have in here this patch there, that. Now that's just down to the shape of the bodywork. What's happening is this back edge of the ceiling panel is not big enough this way, or it's not low enough. So I'm ending up with a little black, darker grey patch in there, which is actually a reflected image of the darker grey wall at the background. So I could only really overcome it by having a bigger ceiling panel or lowering the ceiling panel closer to the car. Of course, I'm not going to do that now because I've already got all of my lighting in position. But what we can do, as I said earlier, we can actually extend our ceiling panel sometimes just by putting little bits and bobs in. So if we take a piece of an extra little bit of foam board, we can take that bit of foam board and we can rest it on the ceiling panel like that and make the ceiling panel a little bit longer. So we're going to just try that and see if that works. And we'll just bring a C-stand in here to rest it on a couple of clamps. Just hold those ones a minute. Top. Okay, so we'll just get that in there. As a matter of fact, we'll get it above it because we don't want that pole to reflect in. Bring it that way a little bit. That's it, that's good. Now, I don't know if this is in exactly the right position yet, but we'll go and have a look in a minute and we'll find out. But first, I'm just going to clip that on there. I'll take the other cocal clamp, thank you. I don't think, well, you can put that on there. Those might reflect in the car. Yeah, we might have to take them off. Right, so we're basically just extending our ceiling panel with one little patch. And it may not work. I'm going to go and have a look through camera to see if it looks like it might be working. It might be, I don't know, I can't tell without taking a test shot. So I'm going to look at that patch of the car, take a test shot. And yes, it has worked. It's certainly lightened that area up, but we can see a cocal clamp reflecting in the car. Nothing we can do about it unless we can get rid of the far cocal clamp. It's the one on the right. Pretty sure it's that one. Take it away and just let it see if it sits there on its own like that. Let me take that shot again. Hope it's not the, yeah, there you go. It was that cocal clamp. So look, we've gone from that darker patch and we've corrected it somewhat to that just by adding a little bit of extra white card. So that will make my post-production work a little bit easier a little bit later on. Looking at a few other things, we needed to talk about the polarization on the car. We're going to talk about that now, and while I get that set up, we'll take some questions.
Cool. We've got one from Louis saying, is the car weighed down so the suspension is lower, ergo the sides of the car are closer to the ground?
No, not that I know of. I'm not a car expert, but that's how it got delivered to me. I've got no idea. I think that's how it's meant to be. I know the Mercedes AMG we photographed had been lowered because the owner said it. I said, oh, that car's very low to the ground. He said, oh, it's 3 inches lower than it would be from the factory or whatever. Okay, next question. A
question from Jason saying, I feel that cars look better shot outside in real life situations to give size, scale, etc. And they would like to know, referring to your shots of the Merc, they would like to know where you feel these final images could be used in marketing material. So well,
they're often used on the car websites. Car websites usually always have inner studio shots and location shots with it going along a lovely windy road or through a city. And nearly all of those shots are CGI images. Even the studio shots are mostly CGI as well. And what they do is they have a model of the car, they drop it into a landscape image or a cityscape image, and the hemisphere of the cityscape image has been recorded, and then they reflect all of that into the CGI model of the car. So actual car photography these days is quite rare. Really one of the mainstays of car photography now is for collectors or classic cars or owners that have got a car they're proud of and they want an image of it. Some manufacturers still shoot cars, but a lot of it is CGI, and obviously a lot of the most interesting shots are of them on location or out and about, but they're generally not real shots. But studio shots, or whether they're CGI studio shots, are still in demand because you can craft the lighting in a way that on a location, obviously you have the reflections of the location going into the car. In a studio environment, you just have clean light. So I guess that's why they're still necessary. I've lost my bloody polarizer. It's the...
About the polarizer while you're thinking about that.
It's the square one. I want the linear one. Is that it? It's got a crack in the corner of it. Here it is. Right, go ahead.
The question about the polarizer is just, you always say that polarizing filters do not work on metal, so why are you still wanting to use one now?
That's not metal. That's paint.
Okay, next question.
Let me explain that a little bit further. That is not metal. There's no metal there. That's paint. That's about 3-4 layers of metallic paint and then 3 or 4 layers of lacquer. So there's no metal there. If it was bare metal, it wouldn't work. Not unless we polarize the light and the lens, as you saw in the previous polarizing show, where we went really deep into polarizing techniques. But we're not polarizing metal, polarizing paint there.
Mukesh is asking, do you think lowering the front light will improve the bonnet shape and also avoid the specular highlight? I'm not sure if you covered that earlier.
Lowering the bonnet light will what, sorry?
Sorry, let me just get the question. Do you think lowering the front light will improve the bonnet shape and also avoid the specular highlight?
Yeah, well, we are going... The reason that the bonnet looks a bit bright at the moment, which I'm aware of, is because I have to have enough light to get this ridge here, but that light is adding to that light there. And when I turn that light off, that light will be perfect in there. So I have to shoot those two independently afterwards. I explained that a little bit earlier.
Then Christopher is saying the top of the car is similar in tone to the background. Are you planning to separate it from the background with lighting?
I already have. There it is there. Just can't see it on your little screen.
Okay.
So it's perfectly separated, as you can see. Just it's difficult to see on the small live streaming screen, but it is separated, and it's certainly separated enough that I can lift that out even more in post.
A question from Alex saying, is it possible to put a flag on the other lamp in the same way and reduce the light on the tailgate to illuminate the front mudguard above the headlight? I'm not sure exactly which light he's referring to.
I think he must be referring to the light at the back here, over there, because if he's talking about the mudguard here, is he?
I can
the
ask
wheel
him to
arches.
clarify.
Yeah, can he clarify?
Yeah.
And then when he does, repeat the question.
Then we have a question from Mark, I think. Is it possible to soften the side rear view mirror shadow?
That mirror there?
Possibly. I can ask them to clarify too.
What did he say? Is it possible to soften it?
Yes, to soften the side rear view mirror shadow.
Side rear view. So there's only 2 rear view mirrors. There's the rear view mirror there. So he might mean that, or does he mean the side mirrors of that? Now, when he says shadow, I think, is he talking about reflection? Because that's not a shadow.
Possibly.
So let's get a clarification on that. That is not a shadow. That is a reflection of the mirror in the bodywork of the paint. If he's asking, is it possible to do something about that? Not in camera, it's not, because it's a physical reflection. We could polarize it away, which may happen in a minute when we move on to the polarizing elements.
Cool. Then a question from Marek saying, in case you would like your car lights on in a photo, but their color would be too blue, for example, would you rather change their color in post or adjust the color in the studio lights with filters?
Well, you can't adjust, you can't, like say for instance in architectural photography, you can, let me go to this camera, it's a bit, you can put gels over lights to color correct, but you can't take a car headlamp out and put a gel in a car headlamp because they're sealed units, so that's out of the question. So really you are only left with post-production. But interestingly, the shot I showed you earlier of the Mercedes, we've got the car headlights on there and they seem to be pretty well daylight balanced to me. They came out daylight balanced. And the one we did at the front with the headlights on, and all we had to do was operate about a 1/4 of a second exposure time with the car lights on and with the flash to achieve the result, as I say, which you'll see covered in, oops, I didn't mean to push that button, which you'll see covered in, oh, we've got the polarizer on, that's why that's a lot darker. Ignore that shot, I'm going to delete that, we'll come back to that in a minute. Right, let's carry on with these questions before we move on to the polarizing element.
Marco has clarified that they were talking about, yes, the reflection from the rear view mirror. So,
well, it's a reflection, Marco. So it's a physical property. It's a reflective element of the mirror in the surface. So no, there's nothing we can do to soften it. In fact, you don't want to get rid of it because that wouldn't be real. What you could do is we could reduce it with polarization, which we may see in a moment, or you can select it in post-production and light it. Lighten it a little bit if you feel it's a bit dark, but you wouldn't want it to go because I think your mind, your eye, your brain would pick up on things that are a little bit odd. If you start removing every single little thing, then all of a sudden, well, hold on a minute, how's that physically possible? Next question.
Christoph is asking, how would you light black leather interiors on this camera position? Would you consider fitting flash inside the car, pointing at the ceiling inside to use its reflection?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd point at the ceiling of the car, but we actually have lit the interior of car. Actually, it's very easy. I'm going to show you right now. Start it, let's give you some really good value for money. You don't actually have to worry about it. You can light through the glass. If I want to light that chair up in there, I could light through the glass. And all I need to do is create a nice little beam light, like a little Fresnel Pico light. Get me a little Pico light with a Fresnel on it, please. We've got a spare pack here. We'll just do it handheld, just to show. Yeah, it's not a problem. You could light on the seat. You could light from the floor with a little stand and light onto the seat. Put a diffuser on it as well on a Fresnel and it'll soften it out. You could choose to wind the window down, pocket light little bits at a time and then add all those in. But, it's really up to you whether you feel you want to. Right, what power we got on that? Right, put that down to about 4, just so it's subtle at the moment. Bring that pack a little bit this direction, that's it. I just want you to stand in here, Georgie, and aim that light through that window like I am there, and keep your body over this side so it's mostly out of the way. And we'll just take a shot there just to show this gentleman what we're talking about. So we'll look at the interior of the car. Oh, we still got this polarizer on. Sorry, I've got to take this polarizer off because this is causing us a drop in exposure, which we don't want. We'll come back to that polarizing thing in a minute. Right, let's take that shot again. So there's the base shot. We've added a little bit of light through the window, and there you go. You see it's just added a beautiful little bit of contouring to the seat that wasn't there before. It's just fairly obvious really, isn't it? If you want it to light up and you want it to stand out, put a little bit of light through it. I guess the thing that isn't obvious to people is that you can light through glass and it'll have very little effect on the photo. As you can see here, it's not causing us any problem with the glass, but you can see the physics is causing us a problem here. So you'd have to do it as 2 shots. So if we want to light from that angle, then clearly the mirror's surface we're talking about, remember, because we're dealing with essentially mirrored surfaces here, now has something that wasn't there before, which is that light. But we do have the lovely texture of the leather illuminated in a way. Put it up one stop just so that they can really see it, a little bit more powerful. But that's the way I would do it. I would go in and I would, oh, wrong camera. I would go in and I would just pocket little, control small pockets of light with little Fresnels or really tight honeycombs or a snoot with a honeycomb, and just go in and say, right, I'm going to contour that bit there, that bit there, that bit there. And you'd have to build all those shots up to get the bits that you want. I mean, it does look quite nice with that little bit of light in there. Right, we ready to go? So this is going to be a stop brighter. It'll probably be too much now. There you go. So now we've got the seat lit up like a Christmas tree compared to nothing, a stop and then a stop more. So how much it needs, that looks completely unnatural to me. The first one looks pretty good, but is it necessary for the overall car? I don't think it really is. So, I haven't really bothered with it. And obviously in doing so, getting it, we have to do another shot to remove it from the bonnet. So a bit more post-production. Any more questions?
Yes, one question from Christopher. If you were shooting this to a specific exacting brief and the art director asks for something that's really not possible based on physics, even with post-production, how would you handle that?
Well, anything's possible with post-production. That's, essentially we use post-production. I use it just to do a bit of clean-up work, colour and contrast. But the only time I use it elaborately is when we need to break the laws of physics, where, light has to come from a position that means the light is in the shot, or two elements have to be joined together that just physically couldn't be joined together in the real world. So, yeah, I mean, it is possible. Obviously, if the art director said, can I have a giraffe's head coming out of the headlight, you'd probably say, well, hold on a minute, does that really make sense? So there's you have this discussion, but these are intelligent people that are art directing these things. They don't normally do stuff that isn't logical or wouldn't be believable. But yeah, when you need to break the laws of physics, that can't be done in camera, then you move it into post-production.
That's it.
Okay, right. Now, did you unplug that other? Turn it off, that's fine, right. Okay, we're going to finish off now just with a little bit on polarization because it came up a couple of times. We're looking at the glass on the car, and this is where polarizers can come in useful. So I'm going to pop a polarizer on here. It's just a linear standard polarizer. We lose quite a bit of light in this, so I'm going to take my ISO up to 200 ISO, which may be about right. It may need a little bit more light, but we'll just take a test shot to see. First of all, I'm going to make sure that I'm not in the polarized position, so I'm going to put the light back to the sort of to how it was, and hopefully, right, so that should look pretty much the same as it did. It does, but it's still underexposed. Now, to compensate for the polarizer, I'd have to increase the ISO more or turn the lights up more. Now, it's obviously easy to go to the packs and say, right, I'll add half a stop, half a stop, half a stop, but I haven't got time because I also need to go back and do the other couple of separate shots. So I'm just going to open up the aperture a third of a stop for this test, just so you can see what's going on. We'll take the shot again, get this back, there we go. So it's fairly similar to the exposure that we had before. Right, now that is in the unpolarized position, but I say it's unpolarized, but it's never unpolarized for everything. And what you'll notice, going back to that person who said about the reflection of the mirror, look at that now. You see how it's reduced significantly. It's changed in its intensity of reflection because we are partially polarizing the shot. Now, if I, maybe if I go into live view and then the color balance might not be quite right in live view and the exposure won't be right, but what you will see here is the polarization in full effect here. I'm going to rotate the polarizer, and as I rotate it in live view, you see the car change, look. You see the windows change, and you should see some of the headlights change. You're not seeing a huge amount of change on the body panels, probably because the light is a little bit strong, but you are seeing the effect of the polarization, especially on the glass. And you are seeing it on the bodywork of the paint a little bit as well. So let's explore that in actual photos now. So that was it happening. Polarization is very easy. Just spin the wheel, spin the polarizer around. I'm also going to have a look with a circular polarizer in a minute, see if it makes much difference. So let me go to what I think was the non-polarized position. So something like that. So we take this shot first of all. Then I'm going to rotate the polarizer, and now the door, the side of the car has definitely got polarized and weakened out. Look at the reflection on the side of the car, and the side windows are now black compared to what they were. So if you look at this area, we've polarized this side of the car, but we've got all sorts of anomaly problems in places. The polarization is causing us to see the stressing of the non-polarized light here, as we saw in the polarized demonstration we did in the studio the other day, remember, with the bits and pieces. So that would be a problem. It's also causing the problem in the window. You're seeing actually the structure within the glass, so that's a problem which we won't really be able to overcome. But polarization can be very useful for bodywork, body panels, because you can see how we've changed the look of the lighting on the body panels with the polarization. Okay, so it can be useful, and I usually have a spin. Where's my camera? I usually have a spin with the polarizer when I'm at the end of the shoot, just to see, but it's not in my mind that I'm going to use a polarizer. Right, okay, I think we're about there. I'm just going to go back to my base settings of f16 at 100 ISO. I'm going to put my lens hood back on. I'm going to double check my focus. Georgie's going to flag the light that was causing us a problem at the bottom. And in doing so, she's going to have to be very careful that she's not sort of reflecting in the car at the same time, but we'll have a look at that. We can even just use it for one shot. And I'm just going to capture the shots that I know I need to do the Photoshop work to put all this together for you next week. So you need to flag that light, yeah, that one, but you go from behind it. Now you're flagging the other side. That's, yeah, what we're trying to do is stop it reflecting in there. So you just need to bring that up until I say, all right? So leave it down there a moment, and then I'm going to look through camera, and we're going to bring it up until we see. Raise it up slowly, keep going there, a bit more, right there. So that's where it will need to go. I'm going to take that shot. We should be back where we want to be with the car. We are. I'm just going to triple check my focus. My focus looks good. It hasn't changed from when I was messing around with the polarizer. We know we've got a few other anomalies to deal with, but nothing massive. And what we do know is we want to deal with a separate exposure for the bonnet. So what I want is, remember, this bonnet was overexposing in two patches, one patch here, because we've got two lights illuminating here. One of them is for this bit, and that one was affecting there, and I don't want that there, but I do want that there. So I'm done with that. I've already captured that. So this light is going off now, which color is that on? Is that white? White. Yeah, so blue. White and blue. White and blue is going off. So I'm going to do away with that now. That's gone, and that means it's also going to be partly gone in there, which will then arrive at the exposure that we want. Yes, still do that for me. Up a bit. Yep. Right, so now our bonnet exposure is going to look different. There you go. So that's good. That's what I want. I'm happy that I've got enough of all of the bits of the car that I need. Remember, we dealt with side specularity, extra wheel light, extra grille light, two lights in here to create that, and one light on the floor to add a bit of a glow in there. And that's given us pretty much everything I need to put the layers together. I could spend longer on it. I mean, normally I'd spend 6-7 hours shooting one car shot, but I think we've got what we need and it's gone pretty well so far. So right, before we wrap this up, let's take any final questions.
We have one question from Zhao saying, hi there, there is a patch of light over the rear wheel on the panel all the way to the door. Is that going to be fixed in post or
Yes.
can it be fixed
Yes, it
in
is.
camera?
I can do no more in a 2-hour show than I've done here. And neither could anyone else on this planet. So it's not possible. This is a 6-hour shoot, condensed down to a couple of hours with an hour and a half rehearsal time. And also, we have the post-production show next week. So I'm going to show you cleaning up getting rid of the ceiling panel, getting rid of the floor, smoothing it out, all the bits, any odd anomaly reflections, all the fine tuning. I can tell you now as well that most car photographers don't even push their car photography that far. A lot of them rely on post-production far too much to, I will light a car far more precisely and look for all the little things and spend a bit more time on it and get as much in camera more than I know some other photographers would bother.
Just a quick comment from Sanket saying, no lighting was done to highlight the tyre tread pattern. Was that due to time or choice?
Don't feel I need it. It's choice, yeah, so it's down to choice. I don't really want to, where can we see the tyre tread? We can see it there, a little bit in here if we want. I mean, it doesn't seem to make sense to me that we'd want to light the tyre up, which would mean it would not be as black. And then, if we wanted to do that, we'd have to blacken the tyres as well to make sure they stayed really black. But this one's come in from the road. So, sometimes you apply tyre blackener to the tyres before you shoot. These tyres still look dark. So choice, it just doesn't seem requirement.
Doug is asking, what size would you like the ceiling panel to be if size wasn't a problem?
I would like it to be 8 meters by 5 meters would be a good size, I think. This is 6 by 4, 2 more meters this way and another meter that way would have a huge difference on making sure that enough, came over the edges and a little bit further and we didn't have to do things like that. But the problem is that would just be a little bit too chaotic in this studio at that size, and I thought it was a bit of overkill and I knew I could work around it for most parts, so hence why I went with a 6 by 4 meter based on my studio size. Are we good? That's it. Okay, right, I think we've given you some really good ideas on how it's done. We've got some even more in-depth tutorials on car photography. So if you enjoyed that and you'd like to learn more about car photography, we've got some great tutorials coming up later in the year on a car that was much more difficult to photograph than this one. And we've actually got 4 different shoots that are happening on that, as well as some of the post-production. But next Thursday's live show will be the post-production from this shoot. I'll spend 1 or 2 hours doing all the bits that people have been mentioning and showing you how I will take the car to the finished shot. Okay, hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. We'll see you next Thursday.